Truth train coming through. 1999, January 10th. Severe snowstorm. Visibility is reduced. And there's a party for Manitowoc Ice and Cops Food Line at the Bill Mars Club when Deputy Inspector Mike Bushman is leaving this party or on patrol when he says he sees fresh footprints suspiciously leading off. Rather than investigate during a very thick storm of snow, he went and got gas. Well, welcome to No Crime, No Time. I'm Danny, also known as RD, and this is your Blackout. Now, Michael Bushman's name might sound familiar because he's the gentleman that comes out of reserve from Manitowoc County during the Stephen Avery Teresa Halbach investigation in 2005. He's the one present when the bones are found. Yeah, the same Mike Bushman. So let's go back in time and see how do all these individuals relate in the Ricky Hodgstettler case, and what light could that shine as to who they are as characters as we roll the time forward. Because, as Brandon Manitowoc says, time's going to tell on you. So Mike Bushman is getting gas when, according to his reports, it comes over on the radio that there's been a reported accident, and he had just been there. Now, guess what? Robert Herman is the first on the accident, and he's the one that picks up pieces of the grill and the next day explains that it's an older vehicle. Robert Herman claimed it was a gray-painted grill, and it was a model from 1985, possibly through 1988. He said this vehicle would include like a Chevrolet pickup, a Chevrolet K5 Blazer, or a Chevrolet Suburban. But that isn't really what works out to be the most concerning, I guess. The concerning is that he took the evidence into his vehicle while he's off duty, and these pieces were never seen again. They just disappear out of evidence. Weeks later, he admitted or alerted to the media that the broken grill fragments may also be from a 1988 to a 1991 full-size van. At the time, Bushman's the investigator. He's allowing Herman to transport several small pieces of the broken grill in his own personal vehicle, and he has permission to drive around with the evidence for several hours with no supervision and no chain of command. Now, Herman claims that he canvassed like a lot of dealerships and local businesses looking for this evidence, if you will. But when it comes to the report, Bushman, who retired in 2005 and then came out of retirement as a reserve to investigate the Halbach case, he reported that Robert Herman took the parts from the accident at the hit-and-run crash back to his family's boneyard near Cleveland. See, Robert Herman also worked as an auto body repair technician and mechanic at his family's Cleveland Auto Sales and Salvage. Well, much later, DCI did indeed investigate Robert Herman. Not once, but twice. In 2004, he was questioned, as well as 2009. And I think it's interesting that Bushman is quoted as saying, "I did the best I could on this complaint. You say cover up, find a witness for me. You can grab any police report and tear it to pieces." Strangely, Bushman's the one that brought it up to the stepfather of Ricky that there had been some sort of a notion brought up about a police cover-up. The desired response was received, and the redness in his face indicated he was embarrassed at that point, indicating he himself had been the source of that type of rumor, according to Bushman's report. So Robert Herman is investigated by DCI, and Bushman's the one that brings up that it could be a possible police cover-up. And finally, why did DCI decide that they could no longer investigate or find anything to do with Robert Herman involved in this homicide? Because the Bill Maher Club, the list of guests, has disappeared, and the business had been sold, and there was no record of anybody that had been at the Bill Maher Club that night. And Robert Herman's so-called girlfriend couldn't remember anything, so it was just let go. Was Robert Herman really cleared? In my opinion, no, not at all. But that's what DCI went with. So now we have to look at it years later and say, well, what else has occurred? Well, there was other evidence found, suggested evidence, alleged evidence, by people at the end of the mother's driveway even. Some of it had paint chips, black and gray, I believe. It was turned into the investigator at the time. That would be Inspector Link. You got it. Investigator Link is the one that receives the paint chips from the Ricky Hodgstettler investigation. And we don't know where they went. Yeah, it's just gone. Doesn't it make you kind of wonder where Remiker is, if he's affiliated with any of this, knowing that they all seem to work so closely and neatly together, and yet all the evidence just disappears? Do you ever feel like there's a changing of the guard right when the shit's about to hit the fan? Like, here it is. In 2002, just a few months after, like 11 months after, Ricky Hodgstettler is murdered by a hit-and-run driver. This is when Kasurik says, well, I've had enough being sheriff. I'm going to retire. Let me hand it off to Peterson. And Peterson remained sheriff for a few years until 2005, when the Stephen Avery case comes in and the shit's about to hit the fan, and he hands the torch off, and he's like, well, here you go, Robert Herman. You can have this position now. You can be sheriff. I get they're elected, but they can drop off and retire at their divine timing, at their choice of time, right? Just a little another note for the whiteboard. So why would Robert Herman have been the one to respond and investigate by taking pieces of the actual crime scene from the Ricky Hodgstettler homicide into his personal vehicle to his own personal salvage yard, when he, at that time, is nothing more than the juvenile jail administrator? Truth. Let's get back to Remiker. So in 1999, Detective Remiker isn't Detective Remiker. Not at that time, okay? So at this time, he's just a deputy. And him and Andrew Colburn, are teamed up in the Ricky Hodgstettler case and are exploring baseless rumor suggesting, this is what they do, that the victim had been intentionally run over by a group of local teenagers who drove a van 40 miles south and pushed it into the frigid waters of Lake Michigan. So, yeah, Remiker, Colburn, Herman, Bushman, they're all there. They're all there, and so is Peterson, and so is Kasurik. And not only that, but Jason Youst, the one that is guarding the barrel at the Stephen Avery property, when they later find evidence that the dogs don't even pick up on when they sniff the barrel. That Jason Youst, he's a deputy inspector, a jail administrator in 1999. And he's helping Bushman follow up on leads and run the investigation. Now, Youst recovers a bunch of car parts on the edge of the snow at the driveway of the Hotchstettlers' farmhouse, about 50 yards from where the body had been found in the roadway. He doesn't take any photographs. None. Does that sound familiar? He says, I checked with Lieutenant Bushman, and due to the fact that the pieces look newer, he did not believe they belonged to the suspect vehicle on the hit-and-run fatality. Are you serious? It's almost laughable. It's right in front of our face. Hey, I'm a rubber duck, right? I'm Rubberducky. If it quacks like a duck, it walks like a duck, what do you think it is? So I've gone over a little bit on time here. The evidence disappears as it gets handed off to Link and Colburn, and it's unresolved to this day. But everybody suspects, the locals, that it was an off-duty Manitowoc. I almost said Manitowoc, and I didn't mean to. Manitowoc. Oh, good gravy. God bless all Americans. Let's do this. I love you guys to the moon and back.